Hi everyone, I'm Maimah Karmo, and I'm your host for Breathe TV, a safe space to come to exhale and to breathe along your breast cancer journey. When I first heard the words I had breast cancer, the first thing was my daughter and what would I do if I didn't make it and how would she be? And there were so many things that were stressful and overwhelming for me. And I remember I just stopped breathing. And so being able to create a space for others to come to share and to exhale and to learn how to let go and just move through emotions has been such an important thing for me to do. I got into meditation as well to really kind of always find a practice to help ground me with my emotions, because there's so much that comes with breast cancer and the overwhelm and decision making and so forth. The show is called Breathe for a reason. So when you tune in, you can find a space to just exhale and to be you and to find community and hope and connection and feel safe. So before each show starts, we do a quick meditation to get you grounded. So if you're driving, don't do this. Don't close your eyes. Keep your hands on the wheel. Hands on the wheel and eyes open. But if you're not driving, you can close your eyes, put your hand on your heart and in your belly, and just say these few short mantras with me. I am bold.
I am bold.
I am resilient.
I am resilient.
I am empowered.
I am empowered.
I am aware of the support that surrounds me.
I am aware of the support that surrounds me.
I am transforming through my journey.
I am transforming through my journey.
I am healing.
I am healing.
I am whole.
I am whole.
I am love.
I am love.
And so it is. Everyone meet Jonelle. She is someone I love deeply and admire. Like me, she's a TNBC survivor.
Yes.
And she is a warrior, a mom. And you'll love her story, her energy, and her passion for giving to other people. So Jonelle, tell our audience your story, your diagnosis, how old were you, and how you even got diagnosed in the first place.
Of course. Well, my name is Jonelle. I consider myself to be a legacy warrior. My mom actually passed away from breast cancer back in 2014. However, it was after a 14-year-long battle with breast cancer. So I was able to actually experience being a caretaker, being a caregiver, being a child with a mom having breast cancer. And so growing up, I had a knowledge of it. However, it didn't really hit home until I turned 34 and I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
So was your mom, was she still here when you were diagnosed, or was she?
No, so she passed away in 2014.
Yeah, you said that.
And then I was diagnosed in 2020. Yeah, amid the pandemic. So it was weird enough that we're all just kind of closed in and locked in, and you're going through your own emotional journeys with the pandemic and trying to navigate through that. And then at the end of 2020, I had my own diagnosis.
Did your mom's diagnosis help you to kind of be more aware? How would that impact you being aware of your body, knowing what to check? Because you were really young.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my mom was originally diagnosed in the year 2000. She was 36 years old. So basically, I knew growing up as a teenager, I would have to start getting mammograms and going through testing at the age of 26, because they always say go about 10 years prior to your mother's diagnosis. So I started getting mammograms at the age of 26. Routine mammograms. One thing that is ironic about my story is that in 2020, I received a mammogram, clear scans, and about 5 weeks later, I actually found my own lump through self-diagnosis in the shower. And I'm like, wait, did I just feel something? And then as soon as I tried to feel again, it's like it disappeared. Like it was nothing.
So you didn't get an ultrasound. They didn't offer you one at all. Because women who are younger have denser breasts.
Right,
which sometimes can be, it can miss tumors because you already have dense breasts.
Correct.
And mammograms can miss the tumor because it happens all the time.
Correct.
That was my experience as well.
Right. So yeah. So basically, since I had always had clear scans since I was 26, it was just a routine mammogram, just once a year. So that particular year, again, I went for my mammogram. Everything was fine, normal, like I'm used to. And then all of a sudden, I found my own little lump.
I think it's amazing though that you were doing the testing in the hospital,
Yeah.
and doing your own at home.
Absolutely.
You have to do both, right?
You have to do both. And I stand so strong with understanding and knowing that early detection is key. It's so important that we know and learn our breast at an early age. Of course, being in school, being a young girl, it's like, we can talk about, oh, my breasts, my boobs, but it really is an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. And so I always make sure that I tell young ladies that I do know breast cancer does not discriminate. Ladies, for anyone that's actually watching this, it's so important to learn your breast and know your breast, especially if you have a history of breast cancer in your family. It's so very important. I say all the time, early detection saved my life. I don't know where I would be right now had I not found my own lump through self-discovery. So it's very, very important.
It's mine too. I mean, I had TNBC stage 2B on the cusp of 3. And, in the early stage setting, there's no targeted treatment. So
Correct.
I felt like I was like bullseye. So you found the lump, and then what happened? Because you just had a mammogram done.
I just
weeks
had a
before.
mammogram done.
So what was your next step?
Calling my doctor. Immediately, I called my doctor. I told her, hey, I think I found a lump. Now, one thing that I've never really told anyone is that when I found it, when I felt the lump, in my heart and in my gut, I knew what it was already. And I would say, it's not that. It's not cancer. It's not breast cancer. Not me, like.
Is that your first reaction? It's not me?
Yeah, like it's not me, but honestly, deep down inside, it's like I just knew at that first touch. And so I was already mentally preparing myself for what was to come. And immediately I was brought in for another mammogram, an ultrasound. And then at that point, they were like, we're going to bring you in a week for a biopsy. And so just kind of going through those moments leading up to the biopsy, leading up to the actual diagnosis, I just knew. I felt it. However, there was a calming feeling that I felt about it.
It's probably your mom's energy.
Exactly. I felt her throughout my entire journey. I would always tell her, like, you have such a story to tell. Yeah. It's like you have such a story to tell. My mom battled for 14 years.
Did she talk about her story at all?
To her family. And I would always try to tell her, like, you have such a story to tell. You need to start a blog or something. And honestly, Maimah, she would always tell me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in time. I'm going to do it.
You know what's funny? She's doing that now through you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I feel. And that is how I continue my journey, which is so important now to be a voice for young women, or just women of all ages that are going through this, because all of our journeys are different. But I realized that I may have been more fortunate to have that, that inner voice that just walked me through the process. So
and community is everything,
Absolutely.
Because you don't know if what you're saying, who wants to hear your story and how to tell your story and what to do.
Yeah.
And so when I was diagnosed, there was no community that looked like me.
Correct.
Of age, of stage, of treatment journey, of color.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very lonely. And I'm African, and we don't discuss oftentimes health stuff. It's like women's problems, or it's like the C word. So we didn't really talk about it. Right. And when I was diagnosed, they were like, it's a family thing. Let's just keep it between us. And of course, me, I'm on the news next month, and I'm like in the magazines, and I'm telling my story. But mom's like, "What are you doing? We don't do this. This is not how we behave." I'm like, "Mommy, people are dying to know, and dying because they don't know what to do, right?" And so it's so important. I think to your mom maybe not wanting to share, that was part of her journey.
Yeah.
But she is watching over you and speaking through you, because I've watched you mature and grow in your advocacy journey, and you've grown so much. And part of what you've been wanting her to do is tell her story, and now you were going to be her mouthpiece.
Correct.
Right? And then you're doing it for herself, for her, and your daughter, who's now a young woman as well.
Yes.
And if you got breast cancer at 34,
correct.
She's close. She's in her teenage years.
That's correct. So the irony of my situation, my mom was a single parent. I'm a single parent. And my mom, she was diagnosed at 36. I was diagnosed at 34. I was 13 years old at the age of my mom's diagnosis. My daughter was 11. So it was literally like a short 2-year span as far as our journeys are concerned. And so I wanted to make sure that my daughter was a part of my journey in any way that she could. I wanted her to ask the questions. I wanted her to, whatever she wanted to experience, I wanted her to experience.
How did you
that
include
with
her?
me. The only sad thing is that she couldn't come to chemotherapy appointments
it was
with
COVID.
me because of the COVID
Yeah.
times. However, everything else she did. So as far as everything at home, she was my little bodyguard, my little security guard, and we really just went through this journey together. I didn't want her to hold anything back. If you wanted to cry, we'll cry together. If you wanted to ask questions, I'll answer them. I wanted this to be a very natural experience for the both of us because honestly, we didn't know what the next stages would be. So I think back to my journey with my mom. I know that I did everything that I possibly could for her and with her. And so I just wanted to make sure that I allowed that same for my daughter.
I think that's so beautiful that you included her in the process for many reasons. But also, I remember when I was diagnosed, how they talk to you about your treatment.
Yeah.
And the energy around it can really impact how you embody cancer. It could be traumatic or it could be transformational.
Correct.
And you as a parent saying, hey, honey, here's what's happening to me. You're with me on my Zoom calls, doctor calls. You're, whatever you want, ask me. You're making it less traumatic for her.
Right.
You're letting her know that this happens. Here's a plan. We're a team.
Right.
And you're helping her to understand she can be empowered as well.
Correct.
Throughout her journey, right?
Correct.
And you know that getting TNBC is so complicated. It's so many things to understand about what treatments are and what they can and can't do.
Correct.
So how did you learn what you learned about your treatment journey and then share that with her?
One thing that was so very important was that as far as TNBC was concerned, that was new for me. So I knew that it was important for me to actually understand what was going on, how that this is a more aggressive form of cancer because of the way treatments, the way they flow. And then once I understood that, it was a little bit easier for me to break it down to her to explain. I wanted to let her know ahead of time what we were going to experience. We were going to experience mommy losing her hair. Okay, so, I wanted her to know and understand and be a part of that process. One thing that was very special to me is right after Christmas, which was right after my diagnosis in 2020, my friends gathered around at my house, my daughter, and we basically just had like our own little hair cutting ceremony because what was so important was that I did not want to watch myself lose chunks and chunks of hair at a time.
It's so much more traumatic that way.
Exactly.
And you have no control over the timing and how it looks and all that.
Exactly. And so we had this moment where everyone was just together. It was a pajama party, and everyone was just together and having a good time and eating. And then all of a sudden we all got together and my friends they cut my hair for me. And my daughter actually cut the first piece of hair. So that is really one of those things that I wanted to do. It was so important to me. And they cut my hair really short, like they didn't shave it. We just cut it really short because I knew that once I did start losing my hair, the little curls or the little pieces, that's fine. But emotionally, I would be able to handle it a little bit better. And then my daughter she had a fun time, like pulling the little curls out once it did start.
So you made it kind of a connectivity thing. You made it warm, right? That's so amazing. So so let's go back to your treatment plan because treatments for TNBC are not as advanced as they are for other subtypes. So how did they explain to you what the options were, and based on the options you were going to be taking, what could your outcome look like?
There are a few ways that we can go with this. We can go a clinical trial route, strictly clinical trial, or we can go with a regimen that has been working so far. So the routine that I went under, it included 16 rounds of chemotherapy, as well as 17 rounds of immunotherapy. That within itself was something that was brand new to me because I didn't really understand the concept of immunotherapy. However, the way that I would explain it to everyone would be, okay, so the chemotherapy, it helps to kill the cancer. It helps to eradicate and get rid of the cancer. That immunotherapy is basically those agents that's used to keep it away. Like, okay, we've gotten rid of you. We don't want you coming back. Kind of like a pest control.
So chemo's like people in the house, like guards in the house.
Yeah.
And then the fence is like the immunotherapy.
The immunotherapy. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's how I would explain it to people. That's how I got through it. And even through my treatment round, every time I would think, okay, 16 rounds of chemo.
It sounds like a lot. And you think, well, then maybe it's just 16. Then you start and you're like, oh my God, every day, every hour. Once you get the first treatment, it just knocks you out. But it's killing the cancer but it's still your body feels like, I felt awful.
Yeah.
I can't do this. But I had to go, 1, 2, and I just counted down. I had a calendar too. I'm like,
and learning that it's killing the bad cells,
right?
But it's also killing your normal cells. Yeah,
for a reason, right?
For a reason, and of course we'll get those back and we'll have those restored. But it really does. It takes a lot out of you.
And then when you are a partner in discussing, did they just tell you like, hey, Jonelle, here's what you're going to be doing, or were they more were they more your team?
I think it was a little bit of both. They basically said that this is kind of like a preferred method, of going about doing this. The regimen seems to just work for everyone that has been on it, which is what I eventually, chose to do. Mm-hmm. However, the clinical trial route that they discussed, it seemed a little bit more personal for me. So I think sometimes it really depends on who is delivering the message. So it was my oncologist, of course, that delivered the message of, okay, this is the treatment plan that, that seems to work. But then the nice lady that comes in the clinical trial department and she's explaining everything and it's so warm and fuzzy. And I'm like, I think I made warm and fuzzy, so it really was just a blend of both. But ultimately, I chose
what made you go the other route, not the clinical trial route? Was it out of fear or just thinking that I trust in that option that's working?
Believe it or not, I didn't qualify for the clinical trial.
Why not?
As crazy as that sounds, because of the size of my tumor. I was literally like millimeter just right under what the clinical trial would have needed. Of course, in my mind, I'm like, well, why would you even tell me about it? But, at least it was an option for me to think about.
Many women who look like us are not asked. So it was good that you were talked to about it.
Right.
Offered, asked. You weren't eligible, but you still were offered it. That's a really big deal.
Correct.
So in terms of like being a single mom, having to leave your job, having to travel, were there things that were barriers to getting to treatment and or adhering to treatment during and after your whole treatment journey?
So I worked full time throughout my entire chemotherapy journey. I don't know how. I don't know how I did it, but I did. However, we were working more of a hybrid remote schedule. So it worked for me just because I was going through treatment during the pandemic. It was very helpful to be at home. As far as my daughter was concerned, that is where I struggled the most.
How so?
I'm always there for everything. So, sports and extracurricular activities and school meetings and all that good stuff. And chemo was a challenge physically for me, where it's like, okay, my daughter has something going on, a softball game, because eventually they started allowing the outdoor sports again. And so my daughter has a softball game or softball practice, and I am feeling like crap. How do I do that? And never wanting to be the one to be like, I can't do this. And I think that was something that I needed to work on throughout my journey. As far as listening to my body and telling myself, Jonelle, you need to slow down, you need to stop. I wasn't.
Also teaching her the importance of knowing how to have her own boundaries.
Exactly.
Because we in the past, our moms would do everything.
Yeah.
Cook, clean, work, take care of their parents, take care of us. My mother, there were 5 of us in the house, kids. My dad, my grandmother, she was always doing everything.
Right.
And at some point, she's gotten older and she's worn out.
Yeah.
And she never went to get massages. She never had pamper days. She never had, off. She just did it. And she was a nurse on her feet at her job and at home.
Right.
And so, it taught me a lot about sacrifice and also what I don't want to sacrifice.
Correct.
And so I taught my daughter it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
say yes to yourself and no to people. And that's a self-care thing.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, I'm going to be in bed today. I'm going to just, tell your friends you're busy.
Right.
And when they ask why, you say with myself. Like,
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
Netflix and chilling. So even with your daughter, teaching her by saying to her, I love you, but I have to make sure that I do all I can to stay alive for myself and for you.
Correct.
She's being taught how to take care of herself.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
We're much better at it now during like my survivorship journey. Going through the physical, the chemotherapy part, again, I admit to it. I pushed myself like beyond my limits sometimes. So I'm still going and I'm still learning all the things that you mentioned about the self-care and having those boundaries and things like that. Protecting my peace. That's my mantra. Yes. I love that. I'm really good about it now and making sure that I stand my ground in it.
That's awesome. And I think that it's okay to give yourself grace because we're taught these things as women.
Yeah.
We're taught them as Black women. We're taught to be strong and we're taught to push through. We're taught to keep your head up and, keep going. And you think that when you don't do those things that you're a failure, but you're not. Right. Because not being able to say what you need, give your body rest, care, mental attention, time, ask for a hug, So I have I have some really close friends, and I take care of all the people I know. I'm a giver, that. I give like beyond measure, but I get to a point now where I know if I do X amount more things, go to any more conferences, I'll be depleted. Yeah. Before I get there, I'm going to say no, but yes to myself, and I'll schedule massage, pamper day, lay in bed with the dogs, and my daughter day, and so I don't even get to a point where my cup's empty. I can sense that if I go the extra couple miles, I will be empty.
Right.
And so before I get to that point, I'm going to take care of myself.
Correct.
As Black women and with the historical impact of, racism that's still happening in our lives now, we're always on guard. So being able to say that there's stressors that are in your life all the time, plus having a cancer, and being able to say, you know what, I don't have to be tired to stop.
Right.
And that's so powerful. In terms of like, you're a mother having cancer, like how did that impact your life in terms of not just, cancer, but like seeing her go through that? Was there fear? Were there questions you weren't able to ask her? Like, and are there things that happened that made you different for your daughter?
My mom fought courageously, like throughout the time. A lot of times you wouldn't even be able to tell that my mom had cancer. About 6 months before she passed, we learned that her cancer had metastasized to her brain. And in those moments, I would honestly say like those last 6 months of her life is where we struggled the most. I would tell people all the time, I feel like I grieved my mom more during those 6 months than after she passed.
Because you know what's coming, right?
I know, I felt it, but still deep down, I'm like, she's going to overcome this. She was Superwoman. So it's like, okay, she's going to get through this. But it's those moments where I just felt helpless almost, where it's like, I am giving and doing and doing and doing, but there's like nothing that I could do,
You were with her.
I was with her, but, wanting to take that pain from her, that within itself was hard for me. When we really just kind of break down those moments of what impacted me the most, actually having to reverse roles almost, caring for my mom as if at this point, like she was my baby, and still wanting to make sure that I respected her in a way that she knew that I wasn't trying to strip anything from her. I'm not trying to strip your integrity from you. I'm not trying to strip anything away. I'm trying to help, and I'm here to help. But some things, it's like it really just would hit at home. Right before my mom passed, I would always tell people she never cried. She never complained. She would just go through it. She would just go through the motions. Whatever would happen, it's like, okay, fine, I'm going to do it. Her last 2 words to me before her passing was not okay. Those were the last 2 words she said. I asked her, I said, Mom, how are you feeling? And she said, not okay. And in that moment, it was a peace that I felt, because I knew that honestly, like there was just the one person who knew everything, you know, like she did it all, to finally just being like, I'm not okay. And at that moment, I had to just really just kind of start preparing myself, like just mentally preparing myself for what could happen next. And, you know, of course, it did eventually happen next.
I know as a parent, there's nobody I love more than my daughter.
Yeah.
And I know that whenever I am leaving this earth, there's nobody I would want beside me or
Yeah.
with me or near me or to take care of me besides her, like nobody else.
Yeah.
And so I shared in another episode that when my dad transitioned, it was my daughter and him. Yeah. My daughter and I were with him. I was holding his hand one side and she the other.
Yeah.
And as hard as it was, I know that I couldn't help him, and that was so hard. I would leave the room and I'll be on my knees crying in the hallway.
Yeah.
And I would, dry my eyes and come back in there and hold his hand. And I stayed, but I have to know that spiritually that we choose to all be there for a reason.
Right.
And as helpless as you feel with your mom and as you felt, there's no greater gift than to have you with her, have your smell near her, have you take care of her.
Absolutely.
And when you and I met for breakfast that day, I could feel her energy with us. It was such a beautiful, there was sun coming in the hotel, in the lobby. And I feel like she's with you, she's pushing you forward, and she's a part of you.
She is.
And even what she couldn't say, and even her saying, I'm not okay, it's her realizing that I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But then through advocacy work, this is not okay. What's happening is not okay.
Yeah.
And where she couldn't speak the words, you're doing that now as an angel advocate.
Exactly.
You're in the community and you're sharing your story with people who are going to hear your story and know that this is not okay, that it's still happening, and it's okay to cry when you're not okay.
Correct.
And that's a huge thing.
And it's because of her that I learned, and I pushed the whole it's okay to not be okay. Because finally, when she just admitted to not being okay, it was okay for her to go.
I see why you said that you were at peace about that, because she was finally saying it's okay to not be okay.
Exactly.
And that's what it is.
I did. It's okay to not be okay. And I learned that most through her. She said she was not okay, and it's like at that moment I have to be okay with it. And I had to reiterate that to her, like it's okay to do whatever it is that you need to do.
What a gift to give you at the last moment, to pass on to your daughter the gift of saying that you can go through tough times. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to share and cry and laugh. And, even the cutting of your hair, like you made her part of the journey. And I'm sure she has days where she's looking at you talking and going, is she really okay?
She does.
Because they look at you like, you okay, boo? And you're like, but you can discuss those things now. You don't have to wait till you're 70, 80, 90, and you're like on your bed, whenever you leave this earth, you can discuss those things now and be more open and communicative about your mental health, physical health. And it's okay for her to say, Mommy, I need help too.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because the thing you want most for her is to be able to know that she can come to you with things about herself and to you, and that she has support.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to ask you, the work you're doing is so powerful around triple negative breast cancer and advocacy. Are you involved in any work around clinical trials or patient advocacy that are working to help inform better treatments for Black women dealing with TNBC?
So I consider myself to be an open book. I am always open to not only telling my story, but learning in ways that I've never learned before. And so, yes, there are some projects that I am looking forward to being a part of. As well as just constantly moving forward. I'm so comfortable in telling my story. Thanks to my mom. And I want to be someone that, people can look at to say, you know what? I can ask her questions. You know what? She seems very nice, very warm. And I get that a lot. I realize, like, even through social media, there were so many women that I would just sit back and admire that were going through their journeys. I'd send little DMs and ask them questions. And so to know that I am in that role now where people can come to me, they can ask questions, they can be empowered. It actually allows me to have a window open for clinical trial companies and things like that, where it's like, hey, are you willing to share your story? And I'm always willing.
So what are things that you are doing to help women who are going through breast cancer and or TNBC breast cancer to be empowered with their health?
I honestly think just staying up to date with the things that are going on.
Like treatments, trials, things like that.
Treatments, trials, testing. Again, I am a learner by nature, so I'm constantly into the blogs or the news stories. And so now it's so funny that whenever I hear like breast cancer and breast cancer advancements, and it's like I'm always listening.
That I want to
always
know
learning.
about.
Yeah.
I love reading about science and new treatments, but not about the other like stuff. But yes,
Exactly.
you're on it. So so you're getting involved in policy as well. What are your thoughts on any kind of, how do we change the guidelines rather to ensure better treatment, better screening for people with triple negative breast cancer? Like for example, there's, we have denser breast. And so if you were to create a policy around people who are TNBC, at risk for TNBC, what would that look like?
For me, it would just be a matter of telling the story. There are so many women that are going through it, but they don't really want to speak on it. And so I realize that our policymakers and those that do have the ability, to make those changes, I don't think they hear those stories enough. I don't think that they are educated enough about it. As you said before, like you don't see us on the Hill all the time. You don't see us really having those conversations with those that are, in the government and all these type of things. And so I think it's important to really be able to have that conversation, to have that uncomfortable conversation, and just to really say like, this is important. And even right now, it's still growing. There are more and more women that are being diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, letting them know what the statistics are. Women under 40, those women of color, those that are more prone to actually getting this disease, hey, this is going to happen. And now is the time. Now is the time to really just stop and say, what can we do to not only help those that are now present, but to help those in the future?
Exactly.
And so I think that those are the things that are most important.
Just seeing people represent and say, this is who we are, what we look like.
Exactly.
This could be your daughter, your sister, your mother, your best friend, right?
Yeah.
This could be you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was just at an event, and just a general question would be, do you know anybody with breast cancer? Have you been affected by breast cancer? Oh yeah, my mom had it, my aunt had it, my cousin passed away from it, my best friend has it now. There are so many people that are affected and impacted by this disease. And I am sure that those that are the lawmakers and the change makers, I'm sure in some way, shape, or how, they're being affected by it personally.
Yeah.
But they don't hear the stories enough.
So talking about stories, you're always out there now. You're sharing on social media, and you're sharing on the blogs.
Yeah.
You're doing your IGs. I think I've seen a few TikToks here and there.
I'm trying.
We'll make it work. So tell me how using your voice can ensure that people who are watching, like those who are just getting diagnosed, who are finding their way, how can sharing your story and getting involved in policy and all these things that you're involved in help you to be more empowered? Mm-hmm. And also at some point, like I'm sure you didn't realize you would be doing all these things. You began with one thing and now you're everywhere.
I know.
Right? And it's changed who you are.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you asked that question. Believe it or not, I remained very, very private. I'm a private person by nature. And so I remained private throughout my entire chemotherapy journey. I did not reveal to the world that I was battling breast cancer until my last day of chemotherapy when I did my bell ringing. Of course, that was like a big shock to everybody. As soon as I turned that social media profile public, something just went through me. And at that point, I just wanted to tell the story. And that's honestly just how I've grown to this point, being very transparent, the good, the bad, the ugly. Like this was not easy. This was not an easy race, but I wanted to show that even through those hard times, there is good that comes out of it. And even now, being able to grow and have that platform and to have people just to see that I'm okay. I have I have times, and there are still things that I go through now through my survivorship journey, but I don't mind bringing everyone along with me. Like if you want to come along and we will just share this journey together.
Awesome. So you were part of a recent triple negative breast cancer study that we did at Tigerlily, which is, I think, is the first of its kind that's been done to inform on how to better deliver care, get better screening, access, trials, and so forth. And it was a really extensive study. So 2 years ago, you were just beginning your advocacy. Now you're part of campaigns, you're telling your story, and you're part of these groundbreaking surveys that will change the delivery of care for people like yourself. How do you feel that you can do things like this?
I love it. I love it. And to actually see the survey more so like after active treatment to answer those questions, it was so very important. And to really understand that, these questions aren't asked on a regular basis. I always think about young women. Like I guess just having my own teenager as my daughter, I think about her friends and her classmates and young girls that really just may not know what this is all about. You have so many people that think, oh, breast cancer is breast cancer. There's only one type of breast cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Which it's mind-boggling to me. But, to actually know that now we're digging deeper, we're learning more about what TNBC is. We're learning more that triple negative breast cancer is not your average where it's like, I think I just read something where women who have treatments that go on for like 5 or 10 years or honestly for the rest of their lives, that's not an option for those that are triple negative.
No.
We have to go a totally different route. I remember when I was first diagnosed, people were asking me, why are you getting chemo before surgery? Because of course, standard breast cancer, you would go in, you would have your surgery, you would get your tumor removed, and then you would go and get the chemo. And I'm like, it's something totally different, and so to actually be a part of this survey and to have a voice and to really just be able to promote it more, I'm really, really excited about it.
And so your advocacy, your voice, telling your story over and over and over again, doing these campaigns, being involved in these surveys that are going to change healthcare policy is so powerful. And, if you have a diagnosis of TNBC, you can feel disempowered, you can feel scared, you can feel overwhelmed. But I know from experience, being a TNBC survivor of 17 years, which is a long time to be alive from this disease,
Yes.
Using my voice has been a gift for me to give to other people, but it's changed me as well. The person I was when I was diagnosed is not who I am today. She was inside of me, but I didn't know she was there.
Correct.
And as we close out, can you tell the viewers how advocacy and giving to others has put into you, but how it's transformed what you do, and as you do that, transforms the world of TNBC as well?
As a triple negative breast cancer survivor of now 2 years, wow, I can't believe this, that this time has passed. I truly feel like I have found my purpose in life. Being able to advocate for others, all while still advocating for myself, being a safe space for people to come to ask those questions. I think it's so important for the viewers to know that you are not alone at all. Even if you feel alone, you're not alone. I did have a very strong support system, and I still do to this moment, but I've met so many women that don't have that support system. And I am so happy and glad to be a part of an organization like Tigerlily, because as I was going through treatment, I didn't really know or see anybody like me, and women that I can share my story with and be comfortable with. So now just being able to have that voice and to be able to really just do all that I can. Like I feel like it's just limitless. Like we can do whatever it is that we need to do. Absolutely.
Yes.
All in the name of advocacy.
All in the name of advocacy. I love that. I mean, I think that advocacy is so powerful, and it's whatever you want for it to be. It could be you sharing a blog. It could be you doing an Instagram reel. It could be you talking at your church. It could be you just being better with talking to your daughter about her breast health. It could be anything. It's not about you beginning a nonprofit. It's really about you changing maybe one thing that could change someone's life and the next person's life, and that's how you create a ripple that can change the world. And so however you want to use your voice, find a way that works best for you, and know that your voice can change lives, and it can create a ripple that can, again, change the world. I'm Maimah Karmo, and you're watching Breathe TV, and Jonelle has been our guest today, and she is resilient, amazing, fearless, a warrior, and you inspire me so much.
You inspire me as well.
Oh, thanks, babe.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.